Hey there, folks, and welcome to another episode of Crit Hit Interviews. I'm Arlian, and we're here today with Lori of Wobblyware,
Hello.
whom some of you might recognize as the developer of Omega Strike, though they've also worked on League of Evil, Beatdown, and others still, and are currently working on Daggerhood.
That is correct.
Nice, when I get my research right. So, we like to start off the interviews with some easy questions, just getting to know you better. So I figured I'd toss you a softball in the form of just, what's your favorite game?
My favorite game. I think I'll have to say some of the isometric RPGs of the late 90s, like Fallout and Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale. All those games. I think I have the fondest memories of those games.
Question is, do you have an interest in the newer iterations of them? Like, I know we're not going to see Icewind Dale 2 anytime soon, Cries, but like Icewind Dale Enhanced Edition, etc.
Yeah, I've actually played the Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, and also the new Pillars of Eternity games are pretty good.
Just going to totally sidetrack here just because it's a matter of interest. What is your thoughts personally on the shift from the original iterations of the Baldur's Gate series to the enhanced edition one?
Well, I think the enhanced version gives you more like character options, so it's all good. And also, as it's much more easier to actually run the game to like Steam, yeah, I pretty much prefer that to the original.
The six CD, or was it four?
I think it was 5 CDs for the original Baldur's Gate.
First I went over and then I went under. Good job, me.
Yeah,
But yeah, I just remember like the little tray of discs and me being like, "Well, I went to a new area. Time to load."
yeah. But I really loved about that time when you bought a game, it was in a huge box and there was like a manual with 100 pages or so. It was also fascinating to open the box and see what kind of stuff it's inside.
True, true. So, what got you into game development?
Well, when I was studying for my programming degree, my main goal was always to possibly land a developer spot in some big like gaming studio. But I started to just make small prototypes of games just to learn something. So if I ever try to apply to a spot, I'll have something to show for myself. So that's how I got started working with games.
Okay. Now you're a solo studio, so what led to that decision?
Well, at some point during my studying years, I found out about Flash games and I found about this site called flashgamelicense.com where you could actually put up your Flash games and owners of Flash gaming websites could actually bid on your game. So you had an opportunity to make some money. So I started to make small games and put them up, and I started making a little bit of pocket change. And even though the money was like only a little bit of money, I knew that this was something that I could get better at and make better games and possibly even make a living doing just games all by myself.
So, what do you feel have been the benefits and the hurdles of just going into game development solo?
Well, the best part is that you don't have to really be responsible for anyone else than yourself. And also, if you need something done, you can just do it and you don't have to rely on anyone else to do it. So there's never really a chance that a project gets hung up because someone else is not pulling their part. And that's probably also the hardest part of solo game dev because you have to do everything yourself and there's no one who you can bounce your ideas off. And it's sometimes very hard to say if an idea is good or not. And it would definitely help if there was some other person who could also think the thing through.
Okay. What sort of skills has game development required you to put to use, and just where did you acquire those various skills?
Well, I need a pretty wide range of skills to make games. You need art, you need music, you need programming, and of course, game design. And well, at first, I pretty much was pretty bad at all of those things, but little by little, I got better, and every game I made was a little bit better than the last. As especially in like a technical view, my graphics got better, my music got better. Not necessarily the gameplay, but yeah, you just make games and you get better. I didn't have any kind of background in art or music. Actually, music, I just downloaded some kind of free music program and just starting working with it, and little by little it just came together.
I read that originally game development was a hobby for you, but with it having become like a career of sorts, have you needed to find a new hobby?
Well, not really. I still have like my old hobbies, which are just playing games, movies, TV, reading books, and stuff like that, going to the gym. But yeah, maybe like if I work on a game all day for 8 hours or so, especially when I'm testing my games and I have to play them like from the beginning to the end over and over again. Yeah, I don't really feel like playing any more games when I get home. So I just do something else. But not really big changes in my hobbies.
Fair enough. So I was really curious, actually, what's the origin of your studio's name, Wobblyware?
I don't remember how the original idea for Wobblyware became, but what I do know is this, that you were actually supposed to spell it, well, as you spell wobbly correctly with two B's. But when I was making an account to some of the gaming sites where I was posting my first game or something like that, I think I typoed the name, so it only had one B. And then I was like, well, there's nothing I can do, and I don't want to make another account, so I just went with it. And after I'd like sold a couple of Flash games, then I was like at the point that okay, everyone now knows me as Wobblyware with one B, so I'll just stick with it. And that's how it came to be. And now it's 9 years later, and still have the same name.
Fair enough. So, game development can be pretty stressful. Do you have any tips or practices you do to help manage that stress?
Probably the best idea is to divide your day into work and free time, and especially if you work from home, it can be pretty hard to do like I had in the beginning. But now I have a small office where I go to work, and then when I go home, I can kind of turn off the work mode. But yeah, that definitely helps if you can separate your work from your free time, so you're not constantly working, because that can lead to a burnout pretty fast.
And you've touched on the fact that you still are a gamer, so are there any games that you're diving into of late, indie or otherwise?
Well, I've been playing the latest World of Warcraft expansion for the last few weeks. I've actually been playing the game since 2006, and every now and then when a new expansion comes out, I dive back into the game again for a short period of time. Usually in a few weeks, I kind of get bored and move on to other things.
Alrighty, so that more or less sums up our introduction questions. So I'm going to dive into questions about Omega Strike, which, first of all, just how did Omega Strike come to be?
Well, around 2015, I wanted to make the leap from mobile games to Steam and console, and I figured I'd need a bit bigger game than just a regular action platformer. So I've always wanted to make a Metroidvania game, and that's kind of slowly started to form into Omega Strike.
Was there anything that influenced the artistic style you used for the game?
Well, I looked up a lot of games like the old Metroid games and, well, pretty much any kind of side-scrolling platformer which has good art style. I looked at a lot of art and tried a whole bunch of my own styles, and I have like some art files where I have like hundreds of sprites which I've drawn just in different styles, just try to figure out which one is the best. And eventually I ended up with the art style that is now in Omega Strike.
What did you find to be the hardest challenge for you when you were making Omega Strike?
I think the hardest thing was just managing the project as a whole, because I worked on the game alone for 2 years. So that's kind of a long time to stay focused on a single thing. I didn't have any big challenges or no challenge was greater than the other if you consider programming or art or music. Well, I didn't do the music, so I could say that that was a bit challenging for me. But yeah, I have to say, just staying motivated for 2 years is that was probably the hardest challenge for me.
Is there anything that didn't make it into the game that you really wanted to, whether that be areas, potential enemies, or abilities per se?
Yeah, I definitely had to cut a lot of content out of the game because I originally had the idea that the game would take 1 year to make, and it ended up taking 2 years. So I had to cut out like a few bosses, a few areas, and I definitely would have liked for the characters to have more abilities and especially power-ups for the weapons. I would have liked to make them more interesting. Just didn't have the time for it. I decided that 2 years will have to be enough on one single project.
Was there any specific abilities, bosses, or enemies areas that you miss?
Well, I had at least planned the well, that's the mountain area. I had a whole another section for it planned with another boss. But yeah, I don't remember exactly what kind of bosses I had in mind, but at least two bosses were cut out and half of the mountains area. And I don't really know about the abilities. It's been almost a year since I've wrapped development, so I don't really remember anymore what kind of abilities I had in mind back then.
Okay. Now, the next question is a bit more of a community question, but what led to the decision to make the player unable to shoot downwards?
Well, I think I didn't find it that useful of an ability to have because, well, most of the time you're just standing on solid ground. Well, if maybe it would be jumping over enemies and shooting them, that could be kind of interesting, but the game has the most complicated control scheme that I've ever done in my life. So I just decided to save some pain from myself and cut out that feature. So it saved me some time and trouble.
Fair enough. Given most of their jump heights, it was. Now, I can see where it wouldn't come into play a lot, but as soon as you got the character who could double jump, I was like, I wish I could shoot downwards right now.
Yeah, definitely something that could have been added to the game.
Another community question, thanks for Brax from Crime War Gaming, which is control-wise, do you view the gamepad or mouse and keyboard more as ideal for Omega Strike?
Well, I think the game is pretty much made for a gamepad like the classic platformers of the console era, like the 16-bit era. But I think it's also fine on the keyboard. But personally, I prefer the gamepad.
Yeah, I went through it on a gamepad, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. On my end, and this is a bit of a lore question, but the whole origin of the health cubes, them being fragments of a blessed man's body scattered across the world, which is then like Hadokened into your body via a priest, is really weird. Was there originally more to that story? It just always sort of stuck out to me as one of the really weird, quirky things that was in Omega Strike, and I was wondering if there's any more weirdness beyond that that had also not made it into the final version.
Yeah, I can see how that may seem a bit weird, but I basically want the game to have like some feel of like a larger story behind it. And also I when you usually in games you just pick up some things which have no make no sense at all that boost your health. I just want to have some kind of explanation for this weird phenomena. And for the Hadouken on the priest, that was just something that I thought might be funny to make. And well, that's how it turned out. And there's not really a very much larger story behind it.
I mean, you succeeded at the funny part. It cracked me up when I was like, wait, am I like basically eating the body of a guy that, okay,
Yeah,
extra
that's
holy
good.
ribs.
That's definitely good then.
But yeah, do you have a favorite memory watching someone play your game?
Well, early on when the game came out, I watched someone's playthrough on YouTube, and well, I watched the whole thing. And in the end, when he got killed the last boss, he said that he really enjoyed the game and thought it was a great game. So that kind of made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. That's one of the memories I think is the best.
Fair enough. This question is also a bit of a community question. It came up on my own when I was playing through the game on stream, and it also was echoed a few times. But was the character of Dr. Alpha slash Alphonse Omega made specifically for this game, or does he have roots in any of your other prior works?
Yeah, he's definitely made for this game specifically. I just thought Dr. Omega is like a cool name. It took like maybe days or even weeks when I was considering different types of names for the main villain of the game, which also lends his name to the title of the game. So it had to be something like pretty cool. And I think Dr. Omega is pretty good.
I mean, I definitely do, like when he does his big thing at the ending. I was like, I am expecting this because your name is literally Alpha Omega.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually would have been surprised had he not, and I just like walked into a lab and shot him once. I would have been like, oh, where's my final boss fight? Shakes.
Yeah, well, he's an evil scientist who's making mutants, so you have to expect something like that is gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah. So, I was quite okay with it, especially since the game seemed to have a bit of fun with itself, given also Talking Bear.
Yeah, it's definitely, it doesn't take itself too seriously. I try to have some humor in the game as well.
Also, thank you for not making me fight the Talking Bear.
Yeah, he was too cute to fight.
So, at this juncture, is there anything else in the cards for Omega Strike, such as a Switch release or more content, or is your focus more on upcoming projects?
Well, it's coming out by Digirati Distribution, which is the console publisher for the game. They're bringing it to Nintendo Switch, hopefully sometime later this year. But development-wise, I've done everything I can for the game, and I'm now focusing on other games.
Okay, so actually, to touch on that, I earlier mentioned that you have your current project, Daggerhood, which I've also been seeing a number of snapshots of it on Twitter. I was wondering if you'd be willing to talk about it and what potential players might be able to look forward to from this project.
Sure, Daggerhood is a bit smaller game than Omega Strike. It's kind of a Super Meat Boy style game where you have short levels and one hit kills you. And what makes this game stand out from the pack is the magic dagger that the main character has. So it's basically you throw the dagger out and you can press the button and you will teleport to the location where the dagger is currently located. So it gives you kind of good maneuverability and new kind of obstacles you can try to overcome. It also has a whole bunch of power-ups you'll find along the way, such as a feather, which will make you fall slowly, and the boots, which make you jump higher, and there's even a magic bean you can eat to flip gravity and stuff like that. That's just a few of the power-ups I mentioned, but yeah, it should be a pretty fun project.
Just a quick question on the dagger. Is it going to be a you throw it once, teleport to it, and then there's a cooldown on being able to teleport again, or will you be able to chain throwing the dagger to do really sort of chained teleports, I guess?
Yeah, you can do like chain teleports. There's a very slight cooldown, so you can't just basically fly through the air. So with every teleport, you fall down a bit, but you definitely need to abuse the fact that you can throw the dagger again after you teleported.
All right, and you mentioned it was going to be a shorter game, but how long are you predicting it to be, approximately?
Well, each level has a bunch of challenges. You can go for the treasure badge, which is there's each level has 5 different treasures placed in like tough to reach spots, and if you collect all the treasures in a run and manage to get to the end, you get a treasure badge for that level. Also, there's a fairy, a magic fairy, which is basically the same thing as a treasure, but you have to speed run to get the fairy because the fairy is placed in a hard to get to place, and it also have a timer before it will vanish. And if you get the fairy, you get the fairy badge for the level. And also, if you manage to beat the speed running time for the level, you get the 3 golden stars. So basically, there's besides just getting to the level, there's many challenges you can take to make the game longer. And also, there's 100 levels spread across 5 different worlds, and there's also 5 boss fights. So basically, if you do everything in the game, I'd expect it to take like maybe 4 or 5 hours.
Okay. And just touching base for a second on the badges, are they purely a completionist thing, or are they going to be intrinsic in unlocking upgrades or things that players can get?
They are just for collecting, and there will also be for the speed running. There will be a leaderboard for the best times.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to share with the audience in general?
Well, if anyone comes up with any questions or wants to talk to me or about my projects, feel free to send me some mail to info@wobblywear.com and I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, you were actually quite quick at answering, so I can actually totally vouch that it's a very good way to get a hold of him.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess, lastly, just are there any indie projects that you have had your eyes on recently?
Well, a few good-looking games pop up every now and then on my Twitter feed, and just to mention some, I think it's called Eagle Island, which is kind of a Metroidvania style platforming thing. Looks pretty cool. And also I think it's called Blasphemous, which is kind of looks like a Dark Souls game in 2D. It looks pretty cool. So I'm definitely watching out for those games.
Actually, same though.
Yeah, they look pretty awesome though.
But yeah, if that sums up everything, then I'd just like to let you people in the audience know that you can buy/wishlist Omega Strike on Steam. For news, there's at Wobblyware on Twitter, plus they have a spiffy website that you can check out with links to all of the above in this video's description. I'd also like to offer special thanks first to Lori for just popping on the show. I highly appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
And also to Brax of Crime War Gaming, The Walking Virus, who you can find on Twitch and YouTube, and Axel Toss of the Crit Hit Cauldron for all contributing to the questions for this interview. I really appreciated it. With all that said and done, it was honestly just a lot of fun to have you here for today.
Yeah, pretty much my first interview, and not as bad as I thought. It was actually great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome sauceum. Also, looking forward to Dungeon Hood just because I like the whole idea of like chain whipping daggers into stuff and teleporting.
Yeah, you don't have to wait for it too long. It will probably be out in like January next year.
Look at that, folks. We got a tentative release date. There we go.
Yeah, no promises, but yeah, around sometime that time.
If you folks enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a comment below, including if you have any further questions. And other than that, if you want to see more content like this or our other indie gaming content, feel free to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and the bells so you can actually see when we release more stuff in the future. Anyways, this has been Arlian and Lori of Wobblyware. I'll catch you next time.